I think I'm going to run from Thailand to Singapore. And I had zero idea of what I was doing. It was amateur hour.
What made you realise that endurance and resilience would become the centre of your life?
Having an openness to failing and being okay with that. For me, being human is really about having some rich experiences in life. That's why we're all on the planet.
That really is quite impressive, isn't it?
Oh, massively.
Welcome to the Being Human podcast with Amelia and Jez Francis. Brought to you by Just Add Water.
Hello, I'm Amelia Vegting.
And I'm Jez Francis. Welcome to the Being Human podcast, where with special guests, Amelia and I explore what it means to be human in this world we're living in.
Jez, what's the hardest thing you've ever done?
Straight in.
Straight in.
How do you mean? Mentally, physically, emotionally?
You take it where you want to. I'm sort of curious how you might decide to answer.
Okay, so I think being a parent has been hard, mostly because, as you know, in many ways, I'm still a child myself. It's like the blind leading the blind in our house, my poor children. The inner tension between, wanting to protect and let them grow at the same time takes its toll over the years, I think, as a parent. And every child is different too. There's no blueprint for how to parent them. You have to adapt constantly, and you're never off the clock. Even with our two away at university and working on the other side of the world, you don't stop thinking about them and their happiness and their futures. And on top of everything else, you're juggling all of that with work and relationships and looking after yourself and each other. So yes, emotionally, physically and mentally, it's hard being a parent, I think. Is that what you thought I'd say?
No, it wasn't actually. I mean, I know how proud you are of your kids, but I thought you might have mentioned maybe that little boat trip that you did.
Again.
Around the world sailing. Or, some of the marathons that you've done, or also the 100-kilometre walk that you did a couple of years ago. That would be more what I thought you might have mentioned.
Yeah, no, those adventures were hard for sure. And I learned lots about myself in completing them, definitely.
Tell us more.
Well, I learned that I'm capable of more than my head would have me believe, I think. And that I'm better when I'm with others whose strengths complement mine. And that knowing why I'm doing something, what it means to me, makes the difficult stuff a bit more possible.
Yeah.
Things like that. What about you? What's the hardest thing you've ever done?
I had a feeling the question might come back in my direction.
Well, it's a boomerang of a question.
I do think it's a really difficult question to answer. And I think things are difficult and are challenging for different reasons at different times across your life. Immediately, sort of physical challenges do spring to mind. I did a 5-day hike to Machu Picchu, which was really, really tough at times. But the reward and the experience is something that I will never, ever forget. I also think through all the sort of periods of exams that you go through at school and university, which are, challenging for perhaps quite obvious reasons. But if I had to pick one, I guess, period of my life, which I think was really difficult, was actually when I was completing my master's. In one sense, it was intellectually the hardest thing I've ever done, applying myself academically to a higher standard. But I think mainly it was the context in which I was trying to do it in. So I did my master's through COVID, and when I was at the final 6 months of it, most of the restrictions, thank God, had all been released, and I had then moved out of home for the first time. And I'd probably say that was a moment at work where all of my responsibilities started to increase and I was growing and developing there. So all really exciting, positive things, but they came with their own additional and, if I'm honest, self-applied pressure to them. So trying to balance all of that with still being 25, living my best kind of young life, spending time with my boyfriend, spending time with friends, going back to playing sport 3 times a week. I think that it was really difficult to balance my time, energy and effort and, really wanting to give everything 100% without being just completely exhausted at the same time. And it was definitely a kind of life lesson for me about being okay to not say yes to everything, kind of creating some boundaries for myself and not feeling guilty for saying no or putting myself first in some of those situations, which I think I'm much better at doing now.
I remember as you were going through all of that,
Yeah.
I think you seemed to get more comfortable kind of saying, I'm struggling a bit, or this is all getting on top of me,
help.
and can I have some help? And I don't know whether that was because you felt increasingly kind of more part of the family here at the work,
Probably.
or you were growing in yourself. But there's a crucial lesson.
Definitely.
You're never alone.
Definitely. And, asking for help and support from the people around you is really important to do, because they don't know you're struggling unless you tell someone that you are. And I think that one thing that's about doing something challenging, whatever that might be, is that you do grow as a person and realise what you're capable of, and probably come out of the end of that experience with, well, you're ready to face whatever challenge might come next. So yeah, I think that's probably the hardest thing that comes to mind.
So before we introduce our amazing guest who has embarked on some very challenging adventures,
Yes.
Shall we share some boring things about me?
Yes, something you never seem to find difficult to do.
I can see that you're yawning, practically snoring. Is it because I am boring? Well, that's life. Being human is being boring.
Boring things about me, the part of the podcast where we let the mundane run amok. The tumbleweed reel, video or social post that we're not brave enough to share.
So I wanted to share the joy of a special moment, which I think both you and I do enjoy, Jez. So
Okay,
I want
I'm
to see
looking
if you
forward
can
to
guess
this.
what this moment might be. So it can happen at multiple times across a year. It can vary from person to person on when this day occurs, and doesn't necessarily have a specific date attached to it. Have you got any inclination?
I feel like I'm in a seance. I've got a really strong idea coming to
Okay.
me. Is it New Notebook Day?
Yes, it is. It is New Notebook Day. The feeling of when, you're at the last page of your current workbook, get to the bottom of that page, time to close that one up, open up your brand new one, the sound of the notebook as you do it, all the pages start coming apart, ready to get organised with every intention of keeping it really, neat and tidy. I just absolutely love it. I was actually telling my boyfriend Luke about the fact that I was on New Notebook Day, and his response was, I think that would make a perfect boring thing about me for the podcast. So we can thank Luke for my contribution today. But what about you, Jez?
We've been given a box of Nespresso capsules from someone who found them at the back of their kitchen cupboard and who doesn't drink much coffee.
Oh, nice.
And this is not just a box of 10. There must be 30 packs of 10 coffee capsules in each. So, it's enough to keep me going for months, frankly.
Nice.
And I noticed they have all got best before dates of November 2013.
Ah,
So they're over 12 years out of date, basically. But they taste just fine.
okay. Okay.
And I take great delight in making coffee for whoever comes to our house and then telling them as they're drinking it that they're drinking coffee that went out of date over 12 years ago.
And
So-
what are their reactions?
Well, it's not so much their reaction, it's Mrs. F's reaction. That she feels that I should keep this fact to myself, particularly if we've just fed people, because they might start to in her mind, they might start to wonder whether the chicken that we've given them was beginning to turn a bit as well.
Well, I think she does have a point, maybe. And, for any of your friends listening to this, they might want to ask for instant coffee next time they're around your house. Joining us today is Natalie Dau, a Guinness World Record holder, motivational speaker, author, creator, and ASIC-sponsored athlete. She is an ambassador for brands including Garmin, AG1, Westin Hotels, and Oakley. In 2025, Natalie completed a 1,000-kilometre solo run across the Philippines, running 2 marathons a day for 12 days to raise awareness and funds for underserved youth. In 2024, she also ran 1,000 kilometres from Thailand to Singapore, earning her a Guinness World Record. Natalie has won all 12 ultramarathons that she has entered. Her journey inspired the award-winning documentary Project 1000 Believe. As a sought-after keynote speaker, Natalie motivates audiences to reach their potential through powerful personal stories. Her media work includes hosting and producing the hit Facebook series Keeping It Real with over 30 million viewers, and the fitness reality show Zero to Hero. Based in Asia for over 20 years, she brings years of global consulting experience across media, travel, AI, sports, and wellness. Natalie, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Being Human podcast.
Thank you very much. That was a mouthful for you. Well done.
Thank you.
I mean, I always feel a little bit inadequate after we introduce our guests, but that really is quite impressive, isn't it?
Oh, massively, massively.
Well, we're so lucky to have you. We have a tradition here on the podcast of asking our guests some get-to-know-you questions, the answers to which never fail to bring us closer together. So I'll kick us off if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, Natalie, which song immediately gets you on the dance floor?
Well, I am an 80s girl, showing my age. But I have to say it's probably Are You Going to Be My Girl by Jet.
Nice. It's classic.
Oh, we
It's a
play
good
that
one.
in my band. We cover that one. It's a ripper, isn't it?
Great one. It's my favourite run song as well.
A connection. I told you, it happens.
Does that one, when you're performing it with the Wasters, does that get people onto the dance floor as well?
100%, yeah. It's that opening riff.
Give it.
No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to. You tricked me there, Amelia.
Nearly set you up,
Yeah.
but no, you caught it.
Natalie, what's a small, seemingly insignificant habit or moment that brings you joy?
I think something every single day that I love and cherish is after my run, I finish at the same coffee shop and have my coffee, eggs, and toast every day. Super simple, but it really does bring joy into my life.
Oh, do you know all the people who work there and do you recognise lots of faces?
Absolutely. It's a real little community that we've built down there now. So it's got runners and cyclists that all sort of finish early in the morning there. So I've made some of my best friends down there over the last 5 years.
Oh, lovely.
I've got a coffee shop at the gym. I'm a bit ashamed to admit this the other day, but I overheard one member of the team saying to another, "Don't overpoach his eggs. He gets a bit grumpy if you overpoach his eggs." And I looked around wondering who they were talking about, and they were both looking at me.
That's what you're known for when you walk in.
Yeah, the fussy one.
Probably got your face up behind the banners for all staff. Beware of this customer. If you could instantly master any new skill, what would that be?
Oh, I think the ability to speak any language.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Definitely. Yeah, I speak no other language, I'm ashamed to say. My daughter, having been born in Singapore, speaks Mandarin. But sadly, I do not speak anything else.
That would be mine as well. I think that ability to be able to then put yourself in any other culture and be speaking the language of that culture will be a totally different experience than coming at it with English as your language.
Our last guest, Heather, we talked about the whole largely unexplored sort of accent bias. So we're all aware of well, many of us are aware of the sort of the biases that we have when it comes to others, but perhaps a little bit less aware of how the way people speak and the language that they use and the accent that they might have might colour our interpretation of them before we've even thought about it. And it would be amazing, wouldn't it, to be able to sort of connect with others regardless of the language that they speak.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got a Finnish friend here and she said we don't really have the word please in our language. So, people see it as offensive when they go and order in a coffee shop, but it's just, that understanding of culture and language that if we knew that, then, it wouldn't be as offensive.
Now, for those who may not know you, how do you describe yourself beyond the amazing labels of athlete, speaker, or record holder?
Yeah, I think, well, firstly, a mother. That's what I'm most proud of in life. My greatest creation is my daughter. I'm a 16-year-old and we still love each other and talk to each other so that I'm doing something right. And then I think, a marketeer. I was, early on around content creation. So I think, and I think someone that likes to push boundaries as well.
Thinking about everything that you're doing, and some of it we alluded to obviously as we introduced you. What moment or experience first made you realise that endurance and resilience would become the centre of your life?
Yeah, I think from a resilience point of view, I moved to Singapore 21 years ago by myself for a job, not having ever lived anywhere outside of Australia. So I think, we build resilience as we go through our life, even with small steps, but that was a pretty big one. And I felt pretty brave doing that. But I think from an endurance point of view, it was much later in life for me. It was in my 40s when I first discovered really ultras and endurance running. So I'm definitely a late bloomer when it comes to that endurance aspect.
Where did you grow up in Australia? Remind me.
So I grew up a little bit all over the place. So Perth, then Brisbane, then Sydney. So have lived in several different spots. So was used to moving, but that was with family. So, when they made the move to Asia, it was certainly a big one.
How did that come about? What was it that happened that you thought, I'm going to go, this is it?
Yeah, I thought, I had nothing to lose. I had been doing some business trips up there. Singapore was very different 21 years ago as well. But I really loved the culture. I really loved the experiences that I was having and thought, what's the worst case scenario? I go home if I don't like it, but I'll never know if I don't try it. So a 2-year assignment has turned into 21 years with no plan to go anywhere else. So I think it was just a little bit of a sense of adventure and to explore, something outside of Australia. Australia's a great country, but there's a whole other world out there.
That kind of spirit of adventure does seem to be a red thread that sort of, knowing what I know about you, sort of goes through, your life, I would say.
Yes, I think so. And until you sort of asked the question, I hadn't really thought about that adventure or, life experience, but it probably, it most definitely did start back then.
So you've achieved things that push the limits of what's physically and mentally possible. What does being human mean to you in that context, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's less about the physical limits and more about the capacity for growth, having an openness to failing and being okay with that. And then, as we just said, it's for me, being human is really about having some rich experiences in life because, that's why we're all on the planet, is to experience different things.
One of the things that you have done is this project 1000 that I think if anyone had completed it once would be, oh my God, and you've gone and done it. You've gone and done it twice. So for those listening who, might not know exactly what it is, could you just share with us a little bit about where the idea came from, what it is, where you did it, and just share a little bit more about that? That'd be great.
Yeah, so I was doing, some ultra races and got a little bit bored racing, was thinking there was more to life. And I was having coffee with my husband, Matt, one Saturday and said, I think I'm going to run from Thailand to Singapore. To which he replied, how far is that? And I had said,
what have you put in your coffee?
About 1,000 Yeah, about 1,000 kilometers. Yeah. And then he's like, okay, then. And that was the end of the conversation. And I had zero idea of what I was doing. I really did. I just thought I'd sort of pack a bag and off I went. Could not have been so wrong. I had some amazing friends that rallied around me and said, we want to come. You're going to need some help. And they sort of somehow believed in this crazy idea. And off we went. But it was amateur hour. We all had no idea what we were doing and what it would entail. But it was a super amazing, addictive experience. So 2 marathons a day for 12 days. And then, we ran across 3 countries, raising money for underserved children.
I watched your documentary of Project 1000 Believe, and I feel like having watched that and seen the journey of sort of the build up to it, then all through the days and the kind of the highs of, seeing all the faces of the children welcoming you as you were coming into the schools, through to the, the days where, physically it was really difficult, mentally really difficult. And I think the the thing that really stuck out for me was the support system that you had around you. And you could see from what you were describing as the influence all of those people from, is it Arthur, your coach, who was sort of... Yes, exactly. Arthur, your coach, cycling beside you, family being there at the beginning, your husband surprising you in the middle. I just thought, you see how, yes, it's you doing it, but without all of those other people being part of this collective journey and doing this amazing thing, I couldn't imagine doing it on your own would even be possible. I don't know.
No, it wouldn't. You're absolutely right. And I always say it's a team effort. And as much as it's me running, I wouldn't be able to run every day without the rest of the team. So they were so important. And, we were a group of people that didn't really know each other that well. So by the end of it, everyone's seen everyone in compromising positions, like, toilet off the side of the road and whatever it may be, vomiting. We've seen the good, the bad and the ugly, and we're definitely friends for life after that.
At the start, when you decide to do something like that, I imagine there's a degree of sort of thinking that is centered around self. I'm going to do this. I'm going to find it difficult. I'm going to try and enjoy it. But there must come a moment as you're doing it that all of a sudden it's no longer about you. It's about everyone else, and you start to see the reaction of those around you, and that actually becomes your energy and your fuel and sort of takes you forward. I mean, maybe I'm being romantic and imagining a sort of a hero's journey sort of narrative arc, but did that happen?
100%. So, I break down at about kilometre 560 and start crying as to why I'm doing this, of which, it was to show women that they can do anything at any age. But I was off social media for those 12 days, and my team were just reading me messages and telling me that, people are watching from all over the world and sending all of this support. And I really had no idea. And I said to them, I wonder if anyone will be at the finish line. I'm not sure. And they just kept saying, I think it'll be okay. Don't worry. And, there we had 1,000 people running with us through the streets of Singapore at the end. And I had, 5,000-6,000 messages in my inbox in Instagram alone. I think it was really taking time out to see, how much it had touched people and how they had come along for the journey as well. And they didn't have to be running, but it impacted them in some way. And, that was the most humbling part. And, what made it so special, most definitely.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? And they're there for you, but they're also there for themselves as well. What it means for them too. I think that's the power, isn't it, of an amazing story, I think.
Yeah, I mean, even Matt, my husband, was getting messages from his friends back in the UK going, my wife's going to bed crying. What's your wife doing that's making her so emotional? She's watching her videos live. And then, friends were having breakfast and their kids would all be, tuning in. And then other people are saying, well, if she's gone and run 85 Ks today, then we can go for a walk outside or get through today. So I think it definitely did touch people in a lot of different ways, which I never knew it would have the power to do that.
Looking back, what do you think truly drives you now to take on challenges that most people would find impossible?
Yeah, I think it's self-discovery and just to really push those limits and see what we're capable of. I think the older that I've got, the more open I am to being uncomfortable. And I think more open to having these raw experiences. So it's really nice to go and stay in a 5-star hotel or do something, but taking us out of our comfort zone and almost off the grid to me is really where I find that I grow and get satisfaction, because you do not know what's going to happen. And that's both scary and exciting at the same time.
Is it addictive, do you think, that feeling?
100%, yeah. I was addicted the moment I did my first ultra. Yeah. And you question your life choices 1,000 times a day during it, if not more. Most definitely thinking, what am I doing? I'm a 53-year-old running on a highway in this crazy country. But, I think at the end of it, it's definitely for me worthwhile. It's not for everyone, but for me, it's definitely satisfying and addictive.
That's an interesting point, isn't it? It's about finding the thing, that the reason why you're here as an individual. And as you say, it may not be for everyone.
Yeah, I always say try and find your own Project 1000, whatever that may be. So it's not running 1,000 kilometers, but it might just be running your first 5Ks or quitting your job or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But find your own thing.
Within the documentary, you talk about that feeling of hitting the wall, when you're at your real toughest moments. Body isn't giving you what you want, and, mentally it's really challenging as well. What helps you through those moments?
Yeah, I think definitely the crew, they're giving up their time. They're away from their families as well. They're not getting paid to be there. So I owe it to them to keep moving forward. Most definitely, doing it for my family and for the kids that I'm running for. So, I always say I'm not going to the Olympics. I'm not saving lives. I'm just a crazy woman running. So I think putting things into perspective and just taking that next step forward is all I need to think about. And my job is just to run.
When you've been running, you must have experienced fear at some point. And if that is the case, what does fear teach you about yourself, do you think?
Yeah, I think, you definitely, there's fear because you've got the fear of failure. And I think that's the biggest thing doing something like this. You're putting yourself out there. People are watching. But, I think we don't grow without having some fear. And if we're not feeling it, then we're not having these experiences. I've never gone into one of these challenges with the mindset of I can give up at any time. And on the last one of my crew said to me, Nat, it's okay. We'll still love you. You can, you don't have to keep going. And I'm like, I took quitting off the table before I even started this thing. So I think having the mindset of I am not going to fail unless you have to take me to hospital or something, I will keep going no matter what that looks like. It might not be ideal and it might be slower, but I am going to keep moving forward.
Your experience of doing Project 1000 the first time to the second time, how was that, and how did they compare against each other? I imagine that going into the second one, I can't tell whether the first one, a little bit of naivety of what running 1,000 kilometers.
It's a bit like having a second child, I imagine. Why am I doing this again?
Sounded like a good idea at the time when we were doing it. It was a very different experience. Like you said, the first one, oh my gosh, we had no idea. The second one was actually conditional. Conditions were harder. It was 43 degrees Celsius. We were frying eggs on the side of the road. The terrain, there was a lot more hills, but there was a lot more joy along the way. And I think it's because we brought a lot of community into this one. We did a lot more stops. We talked about it before we went. So we had people waiting on the side of the road at 4 a.m. with signs to greet us, and whole towns coming out. And it's the Philippines, and, Filipinos are wonderful people and so joyous. So, we were stopping for selfies and hugs and, in at schools, having pop-up parties at Jollibee, which is, a massive brand in the Philippines that really resonates emotionally with them. So I think there was definitely a much bigger sense of community that brought a lot more joy, both for me and for the team this year. So physically just as hard, but I think we did it with a bigger smile on our face this time.
Oh, amazing.
We all experience obstacles. I'm curious, when you undertake an endeavour like this, those obstacles become quite real, I should imagine, and along the way. What advice do you give to people on how to deal with setbacks when things don't go to plan?
Yeah, I think I'm always of the mindset expect the unexpected because life is not a flat line, it's up and down. So things are going to go wrong a lot. And it's just, taking a deep breath and controlling the controllables. And then just taking that small step forward. So, if I just look at it at a basic thing in the Philippines, my watch, it was so hot, my watch overheated and we lost all the data that I was wearing and running. And the crew were, obviously scared and worried. And I'm like, it's okay. None of us are in hospital. It's okay. We can find another way to measure something. Let's just keep moving forward. So I think it's putting things into perspective as well. But yeah, into perspective and small step forwards is definitely my advice on how to deal with setbacks.
Worrying about the things that you can control rather than the things that you can't really rings home. I think there's so many things if you are worried or stressed or experiencing what you believe to be a setback at the time, that sort of writing everything down and then ticking off the things you can actually do something about, and then being kind of at peace with the things that you can't because they are out of your control is can be quite a helpful thing to just sort of navigate through your head to work out, no, this isn't, if I go into a cupboard and come back out again, nothing will have changed. So not to stress about it too much.
And 90% of the things we worry about don't even happen.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
that's true.
It's worry about when you need to worry about something.
There's an opportunity to sort of rethink how we set our goals as well. So a couple of years ago, I tore my Achilles on a trail run. And it was a classic case of, I'd been pushing hard towards getting ready for a particular race, and I knew that my Achilles tendon for some weeks had been niggling, but because the race was coming up, I almost chose to ignore it, and then I ran, and then it got to the point where it was so weak it snapped or partially snapped, and I was out of action for about 9 months. And having come back to running now, fundamentally I've sort of changed my goals. For me, it's no longer about setting pace targets or completing a particular distance necessarily. The goal is simply to run and to be able to do that. So if my knee starts to niggle a bit, or if I get a kind of a pain in somewhere or what have you, I'll just ease off for a few days or a week or two. And I don't put too much pressure on myself because I've rethought about what the goal is. It's been quite cathartic, actually. I feel like a great weight has lifted, and I'm actually able to enjoy the thing. But I used to think in the past the enjoyment used to come from kind of ticking off the runs on the sort of the calendar and the plan towards something. And actually now it's no longer a box ticking exercise. It's just the sheer joy that comes from being out in nature when I can. And it's no more complicated than that. It's interesting, I think.
It is. And I think as we get older, it definitely means different things to us, right? And I'm not a big racer. I maybe do 2 races a year. That's, I'm like you, that doesn't drive me. What drives me is I just like being outside and running. And if I feel like doing 30Ks today, I'll do 30. If I feel like doing 10 tomorrow, I'll do 10. But it's really just because I like it. Well, most days I like it.
Natalie, have you always been a runner? Or has your relationship with running changed over the years?
Yeah, so I grew up sporty, playing basketball, and then I ran in my 20s, but that was about losing weight, running off a hangover before I went to work. And then as I've got older, it's definitely changed. It's about, feeling strong, doing something for myself. I think when I had my daughter, Lily, it was about taking some time out for myself and mental health and just doing something good for me. And then as I've got older, I just love it more and more. It's my time to be outside and think through my day. I run at 4 or 5 in the morning generally, so I'm an early riser, and I wouldn't start my day any other way.
Do you experience, I'm sure you will, but that kind of runner's high every single time that you run, or does that vary sort of run by run?
I wish I did, but sadly I don't. It would make running a lot more enjoyable. I think the runner's high is at the end. For me, I do get into flow in the longer races, or in those longer runs. Like when I do my Project 1000, I don't listen to anything for those 12 days. I'm completely 100% in my mind. I did an 85K race on the weekend and I listened to nothing. So for me, I try and tap into that on the longer ones. But definitely day to day, I'm not experiencing runner's high, sadly.
I think I can count on one hand the number of times I've truly, truly experienced that. Once where I was training for a marathon and I was up near where my parents lived at the time, and I was running through the hills, and I just got into this rhythm where it just felt completely effortless, and it felt like that for about 45 minutes. And I don't know where the time went, and everything was in sync. My movement, my breathing. I felt like I was flying. It was so odd. I don't think you control it. I think it just happens every now and again. Now, do you have a story of human kindness or something that's made you laugh, perhaps in the darker moments when you've been on one of these adventures?
Yeah, I think definitely kindness is something that I've experienced on both of these runs, and it's a lot of people who don't have the ends and means that we do, trying to give you, everything that they can, whether they're running out of their, quite literally shacks with fruit and water to pass to you, or, someone's selling something on the side of the road and they just want to give it to you because you look like you need it. So I think it's really that moment of human kindness that touches me the most. And I never expected doing these things that I could have an influence over, children that are 9 and 10 years old. That was the most surprising thing to me, that they could even relate to this. But seeing that, and now going back to some of those schools and orphanages that we raised money for, and being welcomed and having these children break down and tell me their stories is really, to me, the most amazing thing, and makes all that running worthwhile.
What legacy do you hope to leave, both as an athlete and as a human being?
Yeah, I think it's just to tell people that your own best is good enough. We are always comparing ourselves to others, but just getting up, knowing that you've been your best self for that day, and that is actually good enough. So stop comparing yourself, stop worrying about what other people think, and just go and live your best life.
That's really powerful, because it's so easy, especially in today's world with social media and everybody being able to see kind of the positive side and what everybody would like everybody else to see about their lives versus, what's actually going on and what the reality of life can be like. So yeah, trying not to compare yourself to other people all of the time is a really good message, though much easier said than done. I think we kind of can't help it sometimes, but it's important to be reminded of it, I think.
Do any of the children, either in the schools that you visited or the orphanages, do they stay in touch? Do they write to you and tell you what they're doing?
Absolutely, they do. And I was recently back in the Philippines, actually, and I take my daughter. She runs all the fundraising for me. We were back to see the schools and meet the children that we had helped. And, there's, a story of one of the boys in the Philippines who was a recipient of a scholarship that we didn't give him, but someone else did for school. But he's actually got cancer and can't afford his cancer treatment. And he goes to different hospitals every month to beg the doctors to give him treatment because he doesn't have parents either. And so we donated money to pay for his cancer treatment. And so he gives me monthly updates and sends photos and so it's amazing. I think that's why really I've chosen to go direct to some of these schools and orphanages rather than through some global charities, because people that donate can actually see the difference that they're making, and we can show them the children that they're sponsoring and helping. So That's definitely the best part of it.
It's very heartwarming, isn't it?
Yeah, really, really heartwarming. And I think those stories of how, I can just imagine for you as you've started talking about, the difference between some of the Project 1000s that you've done and running, knowing that this is all going to have a really positive impact on these individuals and that who those individuals are and you're connected to them and their stories. I can only imagine the sort of rocket fuel that provides you with to be able to, do 500 kilometers and go, right, we're halfway there and we've still got 500 to go. But I can, it's really powerful.
Yeah, and I think people get overwhelmed because they think we can't help. It's like, oh, well, my little bit's not going to make a difference. But I always say if it helps one person, it makes a massive difference because then, it pays it forward. So I think anyone that's thinking they're not making a difference by just helping one single person in the world, well, our message is you always are.
That's so true. It's so true. I mean, I'm always reminded the Back to the Future films where, if you could go back in time and do one small thing slightly differently, the impact that could have, the ripples as it goes forward through time. And that might be as insignificant as just smiling at someone who's having a tough day or, lending someone a hand, if they drop their bag or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
These small, seemingly insignificant acts of kindness and humility that can
make a huge
change
difference.
The world. They can. Fundamentally, the world is different because of the action that we take. So I think going back to what you were saying earlier on, find your own Project 1000, make a difference. What's next for you? Not just in terms of kilometers, but in meaning. Where do we go now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I think it's a lot. It definitely with what we've just talked about. It's continuing the charity work because that's definitely. I never expected it to, I guess, touch me as much as it has. So that's something that I will continue to do and continue to try and raise awareness for. And then I think, we have a new documentary that'll be out next year around the Philippines one, a very different story. And then I will be embarking on International Women's Day. I'm going back to Malaysia to try and break my world record. So that is the plan for 2026. So it's the world record is length of Malaysia Peninsula, fastest time on foot. So 8 days and 46 minutes is the record, and we're going to try and do it in 7 days.
Amazing.
So that's the plan. A little bit, again, a different story because this is a bit more high performance focused, I guess, rather than, taking it easy. We're going to have to push a lot harder this time and do a lot bigger distance each day, but we'll give it a go and see what happens.
Amazing. My knees are hurting.
I know. I was going to say, I can only
come and run, Sal.
Yeah.
Come and run.
I can only imagine the sort of training schedule that you might have lined up, and that would give me a potential heart attack looking at it. Natalie, if you could leave our listeners with one message, one thing to carry into their own lives, what would it be?
Yeah, I think there's so much talk and so much pressure around high performance nowadays. And I think, we should think about what that really means to each and every one of us, because high performance isn't just about, the person that wins. It's about believing what is really possible and then believing, what is possible again and expanding our thoughts and expanding our experiences and not being scared to rewrite our own story again and again, because that's where we get growth, that's where we get experience, and that's where we become someone that we haven't been before. And I think that's what life is all about. So, having a bit of faith and thinking about what that means to you.
So true.
And
a
very powerful message, I think, to wrap up our conversation. Natalie, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. I've found it extremely thought-provoking, so thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
What I love about Natalie is the way that she is so humble about her achievements. Everything that she was describing, she was so down to earth and just absolutely amazing. I think a brilliant example of ordinary people, and I do mean that as a compliment, you know, doing extraordinary things. What struck you, Jez, as we were chatting to Nat?
Find your own thing.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And when you're doing the thing that you're meant to be doing, that you're here on this earth to do, the ability to endure and be resilient will be revealed to you. That's what I took away. And if the thing that you're doing is somehow in service of others, even better.
Yeah.
Your capacity to persevere despite setbacks will be supercharged.
Yeah, because I thought that was really interesting how she compared her experiences of the first Project 1000 to the second one, and how she enjoyed the second one more by taking more time to spend with the communities that she was directly impacting and stopping to chat with people and having hugs from people who were supporting her. I think all of Natalie's messages, which I think there were a lot through that conversation, were really powerful. You know, focusing on the things that you can control, not worrying about the things that you can't, being the best version of yourself, and that being compared to you, not compared to loads of other people and what everybody else is doing there. I think she's really inspiring, and genuinely I think I might have a look for what sort of challenge in 2026 I could set myself to do a little bit of fundraising. Perhaps not 1,000 kilometres over 12 days, but see what I could do next year to make a difference to maybe one person's life.
Yeah, inspiring stuff. I mean, and it had all the hallmarks of the hero's journey. I know it's a big part of how we think at Just Add Water, but this idea of answering a call to adventure, finding yourself in a new setup, pushing hard, experiencing setbacks, embracing setbacks even and failure, and when things go wrong, for what they offer you in terms of how you think and what you learn and what you believe you're capable of, and how that can propel you on then to even greater outcomes, and those moments where others around you respond to what you're doing and it's no longer about you, it's about them. Brilliant. What a fabulous story. What an amazing person she is.
We're at the end of this episode. Thank you for listening to the Being Human podcast. Hit the follow button, share it with your friends and colleagues, and leave us a review on whatever platform you're using.
If you've got ideas on topics you'd like us to cover, or you think you'd make a brilliant guest, or you'd like to talk to us and our colleagues around the world about the work we do as Just Add Water, we would love to hear from you.
Please do get in touch and stick around for the bloopers.
You've been listening to the Being Human podcast. Brought to you by Just Add Water. Nurturing individual brilliance, forging collective strength.
I've got a frog in my throat.
Should we give it a name? Malcolm, I think is appropriate. I don't know why.
Malcolm's good.
We're at the end of this episode. Thank you. Sorry. Trevor, who's my frog, just
Peered.
made himself known.
Do you want any drinks?
Ooh. I'd love a cup of coffee, please.
Sorry, I'm having a coughing fit.
With the excitement.
With the excitement. Did you like the way Nat said, yeah, if I want to run 30k, I'll run 30k. If I want to do just 10, I'll just do 10. I'm thinking I struggle to run a bath these days.